Welcome to the Wake Before the Day podcast with my parents, Clark and Bobby. We're excited to talk about the Bible and the Holy Spirit adventures. Thanks for listening.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Proverbs chapter 13. Welcome to August. We're doing this in the August challenge for the Proverbs.
Yep.
August 13.
August a day, Proverb a day.
It's nice, you guys, how the days do line up with the chapters, because sometimes it can be a little kooky when you just look, oh, okay, today is this day, and that means this chapter. Boom, done. Got it. 13 today. We are chipping them away, and it's been a joy. Clark, what are we diving into today?
Well, right away, what I think we need to know, the writer of the Proverbs wants to give us, is that God created you and me with the capacity to desire things. He also calls us, though, to be disciplined. And so when desires take over, you will often meet legitimate desires like love and satisfaction, belonging, purpose, pleasure, in illegitimate ways. That's when you let sin and pleasure run their course. And some examples of that, like God created you with a capacity to love and want love and to be loved. Well, when it comes to relationships, the intimacy can be a really good thing within friendships and within dating. However, when folks are sleeping around together before marriage and stuff, and with maybe not only one person but two or three or more, we're seeking something that God gave us in our heart, that longing and desire, in an inappropriate way that ends up being quite destructive for us. But it's not just like sexual; it could be a lot of things like satisfaction. Have you had a good food lately, like a good steak or a good salad or a good dessert? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is delicious. But there does come a point, there's a threshold where you cross over from just appropriate, healthy satisfaction to gluttony. It's like, well, Grandpa Corv would always laugh. He said, Clark, my boy, you know what's better than one donut? I'm like, what? 2 donuts. Ha, 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 ha. You're like, all right, yeah, for sure. But then what's dangerous after the second donut is the third and the fourth. Right. Belonging, purpose. When it comes to purpose, a lot of people find purpose in their work. Well, God gave you that desire. That's when He created Adam and Eve in Genesis 1 and 2. Fill the earth, subdue it, name the animals, steward everything I've created. But when that becomes an idol and that becomes all-encompassing, the last thing we think about when we go to bed is work. The first thing we think about when we wake up is work. That becomes an idol, and there's an imbalance there. So there's a desire for these things that God placed in us. And sometimes we try to meet these legitimate desires in an illegitimate way. And so what the proverb kicks off saying is that desires with no discipline is crazy destructive. Right. But desire with discipline leads to a fruitful and flourishing life. And so you think through in your life right now, like, what is it that God is stirring in your heart? And are we being patient and going about them in ways that are godly and good and encouraging, not only for you and for me, but for the people around us? Yeah. Or not. And so I'll read the first 6 verses or so and then focus on verse 4. Okay. It says, a wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not respond to rebukes. From the fruit of their lips, people enjoy good things, but the unfaithful have an appetite for violence. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. And here's my favorite verse, verse 4. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. The righteous hate what is false, but the wicked make themselves a stench and bring shame on themselves. Righteousness guards the person of integrity, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. Wow. That's it.
That's really good stuff. Well, let's zoom in. You said verse 4. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. What do you want to break down there?
I think when you and I approach things appropriately, and there's a sense of purpose and self-control, I think we're setting ourselves up to thrive. For instance, when we want things today, you can just swipe your card, even if you don't have the money, and get the thing delivered to your house, not in like a week, but within 24 hours. Like we were late to one of our kids' birthdays this year, or last second, we need to buy something. And we looked on Amazon Prime and we were buying it in the evening, and it had the possibility to be dropped off at 4 a.m. It was like 8 hours later.
That was crazy.
Like, this is nuts. I'm grateful for it in this situation because I want to have it ready to go. But at the same time, like there's this desire to have things so quickly that when things like character and integrity
Yeah.
and godly, purposeful, intimate relationships takes time to develop these things.
Long time, yeah.
And so when you have these desires, whether it's sexual, or whether it's just pleasure, or it's satisfaction or belonging, those things take time, and God gave you it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have self-control. And think one of the best spiritual disciplines that we could partake in that'll help cultivate this muscle within us is fasting. Because fasting, especially from food, which is how the Bible teaches fasting, really the whole entire time, is abstain from something your body is screaming that it wants. And as you invite the Lord into that time, say, all right, God, every time my stomach growls, I'm going to pray for Grandma Susie, that she'd become a follower of Jesus. You're going to learn this gift of self-control. That muscle is going to be worked and is going to become stronger. Well, the cool thing is that approach and that muscle of self-control can then be applied not only to food, but to money and to relationships and to your body and intimacy and pleasure. And it's like, hey, when these desires of the diligent are fully satisfied, it means that we're inviting God into those moments. We're not jumping the gun and taking things that we shouldn't take and meeting legitimate desires in illegitimate ways. So there's a sense of self-control when it comes to our wants.
That's so good that we continue to say, though, that these things are God-given. Because right now we're definitely in an age of like self-enlightenment, self-fulfillment, where it's all about, wait, isn't it about how I feel and what I want? And isn't that number one? Like, isn't that, most important? And the Bible has always said, actually, no, it's about self-denial. And it's actually about this Jesus and what he did and who he was and how he lived. And that's where we actually are most fulfilled. And so some folks that I really appreciate what they say, one of them, they've got a podcast called The Rule of Life, a couple of pastors and authors. And what the main idea that they talk about is how we all have like superficial wants and desires. Then we have really deep seated wants and desires, like Clark's mentioned, like love and satisfaction. But so often these superficial desires are just always lingering and floating and in the way. And so we just are constantly appeasing ourselves or satisfying ourselves with, like you're saying, like, Uber Eats, with Amazon Prime, with, internet relationships, with pornography, with social media, with name any of these things that have become idols. And so we actually don't even tap into these greater desires that we want because we're so busy trying to fulfill our more superficial desires and needs. And John Mark Comer actually in his book, Live No Lies, and Clark, what is it about? It's like the three main areas that we experience temptation and evil are the devil, the flesh, and the world. Anyway, his thesis is literally speaking about this stuff right now. Of the whole book, read it because it's really good. But one of the main ideas and concepts that he talks about is how the devil will promote, one of his greatest strategies is that he promotes deceptive ideas that play to disordered desires, which are normalized, and I would even actually say celebrated in a sinful society. And so that's exactly what this proverb is talking about. Like, here's the thing, it's not, there's all these algorithms right now with the internet that it's not an accident when some of these things pop up. Like, they know that you're a 26-year-old male at home at night at 2 a.m. alone looking at your camera, and then, all of a sudden, you see what you see, or these kind of things. And so interesting that right now we have the Proverbs talking about how really, there's these big evil kind of deceptive things that are at work and at play, and a simple act of self-control could actually satisfy that. Like when a simple act of surrender, like these little moments of just turning the other way and saying, I'm going to decide not to do that right now or today. Like those little moments of discipline, they compound and they become a lifetime actually, and a lifestyle of discipline and surrender unto the Lord, saying, I'm yielding myself to my greatest desire, which is to honor and revere and be loved by the Lord. And so love this because again, it's so just straight up and in your face, and it's not some theoretical thing. It's just saying like, hey, slugger's appetite never filled, verse 4, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. So it's really good. But it continues. It goes on to other themes too, like riches and virtues.
Yeah, and so like verses 7 and 8, the next couple of verses, it says, one person pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another person pretends to be poor, yet has great wealth. A person's riches may ransom their life, but the poor cannot respond to threatening rebukes. Verse 9, it says, the light of the righteous shines brightly, but the lamp of the wicked is snuffed out. And so what's happening here is that we may be able to see God's hand in the prosperous and fruitful season, but it's unwise to cross that line and to put your ultimate hope in health and in your wealth, because those things can come and go in the blink of an eye. I think we've all probably been there, where it's like, hey, life is good, I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm going for it, and then it can be incredibly humbling. And I just think about what Jesus says. Jesus warns, watch out and be on your guard against all kinds of greed, because life does not consist in abundance of possessions. And what they're teaching us here is that our focus is to be on God and other people, not on the stuff that collects rust and stuff that moths destroy, like Jesus says. Instead, have discipline when it comes to the desires of your life, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And so overall, there's like an overarching theme in the Proverbs when it comes to discipline, because desires with discipline lead to a fruitful life. Discipline is taught in 3 categories in the Proverbs. And the first is, 1, you need to have a teachable heart that's open to correction. And 2, you have to receive honor, but you also have to give honor. And 3, you need to receive love, and you got to be able to give love. And so one of the things the Proverbs encourages us to in terms of having a teachable spirit, giving and receiving honor and love, is choosing those people you surround yourself with, choosing good friends, and heeding the advice of family and people you trust. I was talking to someone recently I really love, made poor decisions in a tough spot, and the person had made a comment to me of like, I know me, and I'm not going to listen to anybody else. And the person's significantly younger than me, and said, hey, brother, that's actually not true. 1, we're all on a journey to discover ourselves, and we can't do that apart from the Lord. And 2, there are other really older and wise people in your life that love you and also really love the Lord and aren't afraid to tell you the truth. And so while they love you, because they love you, they might say things to you that you might not like, but that you need to hear.
Right.
And so there's the love, the honor, and that teachable spirit there. So choose good people who are going to surround you, point you in the right way. And whether it's your riches, whether it's your desires with these worldly things, or it's with your body or food or whatever, discipline's required to have a fruitful life. And verses 12 through 19 here, it kind of gets at desires fulfilled. You want to read that, Bobby?
Sure. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Whoever scorns instruction will pay for it, but whoever respects a command is rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, turning a person from the snares of death. Good judgment wins favor, but the way of the unfaithful leads to their destruction. All who are prudent act with knowledge, but fools expose their folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a trustworthy envoy brings healing. Whoever disregards discipline comes to poverty and shame, but whoever heeds correction is honored. A longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but fools detest turning from evil.
It's like there's a reward that's in there, like verse 13. Whoever scorns instruction will pay for it, but whoever respects a command is rewarded. And so that's kind of followed up with this other proverb about teaching other people and the reward of prosperity, which kind of happens in verses 20 through 23. And there's an observation that when someone is teachable and allows their heart to be open to correction, and that's able to be passed on, there's a gift. And that's where like legacy is really formed and confirmed. And so as parents and children alike are encouraged to enter into the transfer of wisdom and wealth and whatever from one generation to another, they're to show these things. Like when it comes to legacy, it's not just money, but it's life, it's honor, it's a reputation, it's respect. That can be considered an inheritance. So those who hope to leave wealth, that can come and go. I don't discount greater things like wisdom and a work ethic and a family vision and mission. One of the things that is just so interesting to me, I've brought this up in the past too, is the 3 generations of the what and the why. And it's like let's say we're all the same age listening right now. Our grandparents knew what they were doing and why they were doing it. And then what often happens is our grandparents' children, like our parents, they knew what they were supposed to do, like attend church, but they weren't sure why. Why is this important? Why do we do this every week? Why do we go to grandma's after service once every 7 days? And then you get to the 3rd generation. And the 3rd generation, us, forgets and doesn't know the what or the why because it's been dropped. And so part of a legacy is not only passed on property and houses and money, but it's explaining who we are and why it is we do what we do. And so that people would know what we do and why we do it. And there's a legacy then of a family name and of character and of a work ethic and of a mission that's saying we're here to bring heaven to earth, by the power of the Spirit. And this is to be passed on. And so there's generational living. We've looked into this big time. We are bummed we're away from our family, and some people can do homesteads and live with multiple generations on the ranch or whatever. That's awesome because we believe that proximity to older generations is invaluable because they can teach the younger ones something that I can't. And we have to see that as part of an inheritance. And I think that's really interesting.
It's just so against what the world today too celebrates. Right now it's oh, hey, let me just quick Google something to figure out. We've talked about this before earlier in the Proverbs also, that intelligence and information isn't the same as wisdom. And I love that, verse 20, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. So who's wiser? It's in most cultures, the elderly are celebrated and revered in different ways. And I just look around here and it's not the same. And so I think about that, the things that we've learned from stories that have been passed down about from each of our families, but then also the time that we've been able to spend, unrushed time, just listening and walking with the wise, walking with people who've really walked the walk longer and long before us. That's one of the things the Proverbs actually mentioned previously too, that kind of sounds like Psalm 23, how there's paths of righteousness. And so what we understand, what we know about a path is that it's been walked many times, yes, but then also that it's a gift for those coming behind you, that they have something to walk on. And so that's kind of when it comes to, you're saying, physical, tangible things that we can pass on and leave legacy like that. That's one image that comes to mind, but also a path to walk on. That's one that's smooth because it's been walked with humility and wisdom. Maybe you don't have the physical, tangible things, but you have these great riches and wealth in other ways because of people who have gone before us. And so just taking a minute and celebrating that too, and grateful for the internet, grateful for sure for these things, but then also seeing how there's been harm done by that because we haven't honored and revered and respected.
And can I read verses 20 through 23? This is kind of how it ends. It says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Trouble pursues the sinner, but the righteous are rewarded with good things. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. An unplowed field produces food for the poor, but injustice sweeps it away. I was reading about this. One of the things that came to my mind is actually a song. And as I was thinking about it, it's actually my very first memory of my entire life. And that is me sitting in the back of my dad's
Toyota Tercel.
White Toyota Tercel.
I knew that.
Thing was like a coffin with wheels. It was a very small little car. It was a white one. I was sitting in my car seat in the back while we were getting gas at a Casey's. My dad was filling up. There was a song that was on that was called Cats in the Cradle, a Harry Chapin song. And it talks about a boy who wants to grow up to be just like his dad. But his dad never has time for him. And as they both grow older, his wish comes true. Then the lonely father wants to spend time with his adult son, but the adult son has no time for his dad. Actually, pretty sad song if you look at the lyrics. Incredibly sad. And his dream came true. And so my encouragement to you listening, and just for Bobby and I ourselves, is that we got to leave a legacy that's a lot greater than wealth. Leave a legacy that is a way of life. Leave a legacy that points people to Jesus. Leave a legacy that will impact not only the generation behind you, but the generations to come. As we speak of Jesus, as we instill godly habits, as we remember, hey, we got these legitimate desires, and with self-control and discipline, you're going to flourish and have a good life with Christ at the center of it. So, Proverbs 13.
Got a good life.
Got a good life.
That's what made me think of.
In a nutshell.
God bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Don't make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give him his peace. Have a great day.